Good afternoon and good morning. Today we have a match between two teams who are having their second group phase match, day 2 match. We have the University of Lagos in Nigeria and the University of Texas at Austin in the United States of America. So Ms. Urbanova will be hosting the match for the Coax Foundation. I give you the floor in a few seconds. Yeah.
Thank you very much, and good day, everyone. Welcome to your day 2 match of the Hague Inter-University Law Debate Tournament. Today's topic for the match between the teams of University of Lagos joining us from Nigeria and University of Texas at Austin joining us from United States of America was sent to teams 7 days in advance, and we will hear the arguments for the statement that when public funds support medical research, states must ensure the resulting medicines are globally accessible. So before we find out which team will represent which side during the debates, I would like to pass the floor now for the introductions, starting with University of Texas at Austin, Ms. Feinstein.
Hi, thank you so much for having us today. My name is Lindsay Jade Feinstein, and I'm so excited to be representing UT Austin today.
Thank you very much. From University of Lagos, Osibodu Shalom Oluvamoreva. Who's yours?
Hello, everyone. It is my pleasure to be here today, and I'm so excited to be participating in this debate. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome. From University of Texas at Austin, Mr. O'Rourke.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gordy, and I'm excited to be participating in this debate with y'all.
Thank you and welcome. From University of Lagos, Mr. Aguirre.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Peter Aguirre, and I'm very excited to be part of this debate today. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome. From University of Texas at Austin, Ms. Dashpatak.
Hi, my name is Ruta Rajpatak, and I'm so excited to be here and representing my university today.
Thank you. Welcome.
I'm excited to participate in today's debate.
Thank you. Welcome. So, in a short while, you should be able to see the wheel for the allocation of positions. If I can just get a confirmation that you do. All right. Thank you very much. So, as always, as in day 1 and going forward, we have 2 options for each team, against and in favor. And for today's debate, it will be the University of Lagos that will defend the against position, and University of Texas at Austin that will defend the in favor position, thus arguing that when public funds support medical research, states must ensure the resulting medicines are globally accessible, whereas University of Lagos will argue that they do not have to. So now you have final 5 minutes to finalize your preparations. Feel free to close your cameras and mics. Thank you, everyone. Your time for final preparation has now passed. We'll begin by hearing the opening statements, starting with the position in favor. University of Texas at Austin, you have 4 minutes.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Honorable judges and esteemed opponents, thank you for engaging in this exciting debate with us. We are proud to support the topic that when public funds support medical research, states must ensure that the resulting medicines are globally accessible. We will begin by defining terms for today's debate. According to Black's Law Dictionary, public funds are defined as money generated and used by governments to use to provide goods and services to the public in general. In the context of this debate, those goods and services are medicines resulting from publicly funded medical research. This legal definition is also supported by colloquial law definitions. For example, the LSD Law Dictionary defines public funds as commonly referred to, quote, money or assets collected and managed by a government or public authority. This means that public funds may refer to pooled international funds such as the World Bank, International Monetary Fund, or the UN Central Emergency Response Fund. We offer 3 points in support of today's topic. 1. The use of public funds creates a moral and legal public responsibility. 2. Global medical access is necessary in the face of evolving pandemics and global health crises. And 3. The global infrastructure for equal access exists in the status quo. First, using public funds creates public responsibility. When states use public funds and healthcare related to public international property, they assume a responsibility that extends beyond their own borders. This creates a moral and legal obligation to ensure global accessibility. This responsibility includes ensuring that medicines reach populations in need. Many countries lack robust healthcare systems, and without global access obligations, these populations may be excluded from life-saving treatments. By requiring states to use public resources to distribute medicines equitably, critical gaps in healthcare are filled. The UN's responsibility of states for internationally wrongful acts establishes that states have an obligation to prevent harm beyond their borders. This includes withholding essential medicines that could mitigate global health crises. It also states explicitly that if a state uses public resources, then obstructs international access, it has violated international treaty obligations. Second, a framework for global distribution of medicines is necessary to keep up with the increasing threat of diseases. Pandemics do not begin and end at borders, and global problems require global solutions. A National Institute of Health report indicates global pandemics will only become more frequent. All these risk factors not only increase the likelihood of global health crises, but also worse effects of resulting pandemics are disproportionately felt by countries with limited national healthcare resilience capabilities. Vaccine inequity exacerbated and prolonged the pandemic, which international initiatives such as COVAX tried to correct for. But according to the BMJ, global health and vaccines, but not sharing in the end products such as global public goods. It is clear that while international partnerships are a step in the right direction, a global distribution mandate will be necessary for program success. And third, the international infrastructure for global accessibility already exists. Global accessibility is achievable, but because the international infrastructure already exists and is necessary to resolve a lack in national resources. For example, the World Trade Organization TRIPS agreement creates a multilateral pact on international property where all World Trade Organization members must protect and enforce patents. However, the Doha Declaration in 2001 adds additional protections on public health, stating the importance of international collaboration in circumstances of national emergency. Ensuring global accessibility fits into the status quo of international law, making this operationally feasible using pre-existing mechanisms. For all of these reasons, we urge that you support today's topic. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear the opening statements by University of Lagos for the against position. 4 minutes.
Global compassion cannot override democratic authority, sovereignty, or reality. Good day to the panel and to my colleagues from the University of Texas in Austin. We, the opposition, reject this motion asking for publicly funded medicine to be globally accessible, and I will be defending our stance with 4 points. First, governmental revenue exists to serve its own citizens. Second, each country faces unique realities. Third, global accessibility is vague in itself and difficult to enforce. And fourth, soft laws do not guarantee obligation. To my first argument, governmental revenue exists to serve its own citizens. Government is for the people and of the people, not of the world. Let us think of a trustee and beneficiary relationship. The government exists solely to protect the interest of its citizens, and it owes them a duty of care and accountability. The state is a global trustee. No, it's not. They are sovereign actors primarily accountable to their people and to their populations. In the case of Subramani against the Minister of Health, the Constitutional Court of South Africa held that the right to healthcare is subject to available resources, and the state cannot be compelled to provide treatment beyond its fiscal capacity. A government that fails its citizens cannot effectively serve the world. And this principle is also reflected in the international law, Article 12 of the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, which recognizes that everyone has the right to the highest attainable standard of health. Yes, however, it is impossible to ignore the fact that it is subject to the confine of every individual state's territory and the limits of available resources. This leads me to my second point. Each country faces unique realities. Resources, infrastructure, and fiscal capacity differ from state to state, and international law does not impose a uniform obligation of redistribution. Let us consider the artemisinin based combination therapies for malaria, developed with public funding and now popularly accessible. Yet, malaria still kills 600,000 people per year. The access gap is not caused by patent unavailability. Treating it as such addresses the wrong problem, as the patents are accessible yet available. Furthermore, mandating global redistribution of publicly funded medicine ignores and destroys the private co-investments that make these breakthroughs research possible in the first place. Turning over to my next point, global accessibility in itself is vague and difficult to enforce. What exactly does global accessibility mean? Does it mean making the research and design available, all medicines, or even some? It is important to note that international frameworks like the World Health Organization or the trade related aspects of intellectual property rights rely on consent, negotiation, and flexibility. Enforcing this would be politically and administratively chaotic. Who would monitor, decide priorities, and resolve disputes? This would consume enormous resources, all without guaranteeing real access. Finally, soft law cannot create binding obligations because international law is based on consent and sovereignty. No state is legally required to surrender control over publicly funded medicines unless it is clearly agreed to do so. The Vienna Convention on the Law of Treaties, Article 26, confirms that only ratified treaties are bound to states, observing Pacta Sunt Servanda, and it applies exclusively to consenting parties, and no state can be held to an obligation it never accepted. We do not argue that global suffering is acceptable. We argue that states cannot be compelled beyond their capacity. States are not failing the world by protecting their citizens first. They are
Statements, starting with the first statement by University of Texas at Austin. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you to our opponents for providing their perspective. We would like to reiterate that states have both the national funds, merely a matter of global compassion, but rather obligation, responsibility of states for international or democratic accountability. But rather, if every single state only cared about their domestic populations, this would create an untenable international environment. Obligations. The negatives understanding of public funds ignores the global reality. International financing bodies, such as the World Bank, are funded by member states' public budgets. Thus, pooled taxpayer resources, such as multilateral funding mechanisms and global health R&D financing, are still public funds, and global access obligations logically follow from the use of shared international resources that are not exclusively domestic taxpayer budgets. Now, while we agree that there may not be exact global infrastructure or definitions in place, the negative's contention that our approach is too idealistic and not concrete, we will have to disagree with. We are here today to debate the legal, political, and moral question of whether states should be obligated to ensure global access to medicine when they have benefited from global resources, not whether there is currently a specific, enforceable, or concrete definition of this. They claim that international law is based on the premise of consent, but if states take public funds, then they ought to have global obligations reciprocally. Additionally, we would like to clarify that examples of malaria and neglect of global populations are occurring currently, and there's only a risk that a new system with obligated global distribution would make these things better. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now proceed to hear the first rebuttal by University of Lagos. You have 2 minutes.
Am I audible and visible?
Yes.
Judges, the proposition claims the high moral ground, but morality without legality becomes coercion, and morality without sustainability becomes responsibility. Judges, the proposition first argument is that public funding creates a legal or moral obligation on states to ensure global accessibility. That argument fundamentally overstates the scope of international human rights law. Article 2, sub 1 of the ICESCR explicitly provides that obligations are to be realized progressively and primarily within the state's available resources. The covenant does not impose a direct extraterritorial duty to supply medicines globally. Also, Article 2 of the draft articles on state responsibility also does not provide any legal obligation for states to make their medicines globally accessible. Judges, the negative effect of this global accessibility is first loss of return on in second, disincentive for future funding. If the public sees the tax dollars being exported to benefit foreign citizens before why the domestic issues persist, the taxpayers will be the tax it will create a backlash for subsidizing the world healthcare at the expense of the taxpayers. Also, judges, the opposition begins from a foundational principle of international law. States are not global trustees; they are sovereign actors primarily accountable to their own populations. Public funding originates from domestic taxpayers and is authorized through national democratic processes under Article 2, Sub 1 of the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. States undertake to realize socio-economic rights individually and international assistance and cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you. Now to hear the second rebuttal for in favor position, University of Texas at Austin, 2 minutes.
Sorry, my partner's microphone isn't working. She's going to speak through my laptop.
Can you all hear me from here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I'm so sorry about that. Thank you to our opponents for their perspective, but we will respectfully need to disagree with the negative's argument that we are morality without legal obligation. Our position is clearly grounded in UN declaration and international law. They contend that the affirmative would create an untenable legal sphere, but the topic that we have been given today only requires us to affirm global accessibility, not that resulting medicines must be distributed globally prior to achieving adequate domestic accessibility, which answers their argument about adequate resources and distribution. Tax dollars being exported is already happening. We have organizations like the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank today, and it is a good thing that we have those things. The negative position that public funding should never be used toward which would create states that are purely sovereign at the expense of any cooperation over global issues. At the end of the day, issues like global pandemics do not begin and end at borders. If states only purely have legal obligations to themselves and their own democratic populations, then there is no way to eradicate diseases globally or deal with issues such as COVID-19. The negative has not contended with our examples such as the COVAX program being hindered by prioritization of vaccine nationalism over international obligations. This is not a utopian or idealistic approach. It is not about whether a specific country will listen or how we can compel that, or that countries with different infrastructure will have to implement a uniform policy. Rather, it is a question of should countries with extra additional resources that they have secured through the use of international funding have some obligation to give back to their international community. We contend that both from a legal and moral perspective, it would be nonsensical not to uphold some form of reciprocal obligation in exchange for use of those public funds. Thank you, judges, for your consideration.
Thank you. For the second rebuttal in the against position, University of Lagos.
Judges, the opposition submits that public funding does not equate to public ownership of intellectual output. The proposition has further argued that the argument that your claim is that the domestic should be satisfied. But judges, we have already established that there are a plethora of negative effects of this global accessibility to even the taxpayers and the people that fund these medical breakthroughs in the innovating countries. First, the double payment burden. Citizens feel cheated when they pay twice. First, through their taxes to fund the research, and high retail prices because the government didn't serve domestic well before making the results global. Second, domestic shortages, and third, opportunity cost. Judges, it's our fault. We further argue that the proposition believes that mandatory global sharing is the only way to build a unified defense against future pandemics. On that, we beg to differ. A one-size-fits-all global framework is a dangerous delusion that ignores the reality of a viral evolution and regional needs. By forcing every nation to follow a single set of rules, we stifle the diverse local innovations that are actually required, judges, that are actually required to fight different variants in different climates. Judges, the proposition also argues that since taxpayers' money is used, there is a moral and legal duty to give this right to the entire world. Judges, a government's first moral and legal duty is to its own citizens, and who paid those taxes, not to a global abstract. It's a fundamental betrayal to ask a local teacher or a factory worker to fund a breakthrough only to tell them they must wait in line behind the rest of the world to receive the treatment they prepared. Furthermore, judges, international law, like the TRIPS agreement, already protect intellectual property because it recognizes that without a right to own, there is no reason to invent. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now proceed to hear the concluding statements. University of Texas at Austin, 2 minutes for in favor position.
Can everyone hear and see me? Oh, sorry. Can you guys hear me and see me all right?
Yes, no echo.
Awesome. Thank you to our judges and to our opponents for their case. First, I want to acknowledge that the affirmation and the negation both agree that medical research is an absolute necessity, yet our team has demonstrated that the status quo simply demands international cooperation. The negation cites the Vienna Declaration that only ratified treaties are bound. Yet we have ratified the definition we presented in our introduction. The UN Responsibility of States for Internationally Wrongful Acts explicitly states that if a state uses public resources, then that obstructs international access, and that it has then violated international treaty obligations. The negation then argues that international bodies don't consent to participate in public funds. Yet by joining these international organizations like the WHO or the WTO or the UN is a form of consent to participate in all aspects of these organizations. For example, the World Trade Organization states that violating their terms results in disciplinary action for over 15 months. By not participating in these public funds, states will face massive harms, making it clear that this is a necessity. Next, the negation cites Article 12, that everyone has a right to the highest attainable state. We cannot operate under a one-size-fits-all framework that the negation claims. Instead, we need to ensure that we have global accessibility to prove the access of medicines. Our argument is not that the public owns resulting intellectual property, rather we all own the benefits of this property. With respect to our opponents, the international ability to prevent deadly pandemics is more important than individual citizens feeling cheated by the use of their tax dollars. Further, international funding already exists and is important, citing examples like the World Trade Organization and the IMF that prove this. We need reciprocal obligations and consent tied to the use of public funds. When states use these public funds, they assume public responsibility, which will continue to be utilized by states. We must engage in international cooperation because public health cannot stop at borders. Given our team has proven the infrastructure and legal foundation, we must grant public access to the necessary medical resources. For these reasons, please support our side on the affirmation. Thank you.
Thank you. For the concluding statements in the against position, University of Lagos, you have 2 minutes.
Can I confirm that I'm both audible and visible?
You are.
All right. I'll start my debate in 3, 2, 1. Honorable judges, esteemed chair, and respected opponents, we began today's debate with a simple truth. Global compassion cannot override domestic authority, sovereignty, or reality. Revenue exists to serve its own citizens. The state is a trustee, and its beneficiaries are the people who fund it. Second, each country faces unique realities, and global mandates cannot legislate away poverty, weak health system, and absent supply chains. Secondly, we also argued that soft law does not create binding obligation. Also, we argued that public funding does not equate public ownership and that there wouldn't be any international wrong without an international obligation. The proposition has also come to raise several arguments which we have responded to. First, they argue that public funding creates a global duty. However, a duty bounded by capacity is not a mandate for unlimited redistribution. Also, they talked about international cooperation being a way to achieve global accessibility. We understand that, to be fair. However, domestic responsibility comes first. A state that exhausts its own capacity helping the world cannot help anyone, even itself. Honorable judges, in April 2021, India was the world's largest vaccine manufacturer, and the Delta wave hit. Within weeks, India recorded 400,000 infections a day. Hospital collapsed, and the government had to make a decision that no treaty can take away. It altered export and turned those vaccines towards its own people. The proposition today calls that a failure of global responsibility. We call it government doing exactly what government exists to do. States are not failing the world by protecting their citizens first. They are fulfilling the only mandate they were ever given. And for this reason, the opposition urges you to reject the motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You can all now relax. At this point, you are no longer under evaluation. I would like to congratulate you on completing your day 2 match. Well done to the 2 teams. I would like to thank the 3 judges that are possibly already now watching live the match. As the teams know, the judges have 2 working days to review the match and to submit the scoring cards. After we validate them, we'll share the results with you and, of course, your coaches. And already now we have opportunity to do a short feedback round amongst yourselves. On that note, I would like to invite the University of Texas at Austin. How did you find the debate, the research, the topic today? Perhaps starting with Mr. O'Rourke.
I thought the topic was interesting. When we first got it, we were a little apprehensive because we thought that this is actually exactly how the debate was going to go, where the affirmative side or the support side kind of takes a more moral road, and the I guess the negative side takes a more moral obligation doesn't require or is not bound in legal documentation. However, as we kind of did more research, I think that we found that that there maybe is some legal warrant for the affirmative side as well, in addition to moral obligations. So I think that it turned out to be quite an interesting research experience, and I enjoyed it a lot.
Thank you. From University of Lagos, Mr. Apayemi.
All right, thank you. I think the debate was a really nice one, and we enjoyed the all points that was put forward by the University of Texas. Yeah, so coming to the research, I think the research was kind of very uh, insightful and informative. I personally got to learn about different soft laws, hard laws, and the borders on the responsibilities, whether or not the state has the responsibility of making the publicly funded medical innovations globally accessible. And I found this particular topic really necessary and important because right now the world needs each other, right? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. From University of Texas at Austin, Ms. Feinstein.
Sorry, I'll speak from Gordy's computer again, if that's okay. Yes, I also found this topic very interesting. Something that we contended with a lot was really the definition of public funds. For us, we kind of thought that this would determine the direction of the debate, because if public funds are solely kind of national taxpayer money, then it becomes a little bit harder to argue for the affirmative side. Whereas if public funds include international public funds, then it becomes a more intuitive argument for the affirmative side. So that was kind of something for us where we were looking into a lot of different legal definitions, trying to see how international law has conceptualized public funds in the past. And I think that's something that I had never looked into that much before with that level of depth. So I really did enjoy the background research for this topic.
Thank you. Ms. Oliva Moreva, how did you find the debate today?
Hello, everyone. I really enjoyed my match today because, as everyone said, the topic was really insightful. I was able to do a lot of research, and it took a lot of effort preparing for websites. So it is very eye-opening, the topic in itself, and as my colleague also said, the definitions in themselves, they proved to be quite a hassle, but I'm happy that we were all able to pull through in the end. So yes, I hope to doing this again.
Thank you very much. Ms. Rash Patak, how did you find the debate today?
I really enjoyed the process of researching for this topic. I thought being able to talk about healthcare and pandemics, especially since it's something we've all lived through very recently, was a really cool experience to be able to look at it from a very international perspective and trying to gain more of a understanding of what went wrong and what went well during the pandemic was a really cool personal application that we were able to put into the research of this debate. So I really enjoyed that process. But I also agree with my peers about how the flow of the debate went, that I really found it to be a interesting argumentation between prioritizing domestic responsibility versus international responsibility.
Thank you for sharing. From University of Lagos, Mr. Aguirre.
Good evening, guys. I must say it was a very insightful session, and it was really good to get this topic because it was more or less an offshoot of the last topic we did, and it was easy to pivot the research towards global accessibility. But like my colleagues have said, there were a lot of troubles, determining what global accessibility meant in itself, and how why publicly funded medicine should be globally accessible in the first instance. At this point, I think I know more about technological terms than a vaccine scientist at this point. But it's a very fun one, and it was insightful. It was a good battle. I would love to do this again.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Once again, really well done for your second day debate. I would like to also encourage you to continue maybe researching the topic further or engaging with legislation throughout your practice or academic career. So you'll find also a few other topics coming your way throughout the competition. And perhaps you have already seen some of the debates that the other teams are partaking in during this year's edition, or maybe you have looked into debates of past editions. So that would be my next questions for the two teams. You can choose which one of your team members starts to answer. So first, to the University of Lagos, I would like to pose a question. What debates, if any, have you been able maybe to observe already this edition, or which debates from the past that you might have seen have inspired you or challenged you in your preparations?
Be honest.
Yeah, to be honest, we have watched past debate competitions. Especially, we researched on the University of Austin's last rounds, and we tried to see where their strength lies and where we can work on one or two. And also, we watched the winners of the last round. University of Bologna. We watched a lot of their rounds to learn one or two things from them. But other than that, yeah, we did a lot of research on our own.
Same question for the University of Texas at Austin.
Yeah, similarly, we also watched our opponents debate. We wanted to get a sense of how they spoke or just what, even just like speaker order, so we could kind of get an understanding of what they liked to argue in their last debate. And it was a really interesting experience. We also tried to look for topics that were similar to ours. That way we can get an understanding of what other people are doing in similar situations. So that was a really fun learning experience to get to witness other debates.
All right, thank you for sharing. For now, I'm passing the floor to Professor Levanche to wrap us up, also with one more networking question.
Yes, congratulations as well from me for your match. Second match, we can see indeed that you have been observing videos from other match. So welcome again in that competition. You are fully now in the dynamic. And yes, my question, the last one, is more on the skills. So during the competition, after each match, you notice that yes, you need to activate several skills. So I will ask each team, so you can start maybe with one of your members, which kind of skill did you develop or are you developing the most currently during this competition? So we'll start with the University of Lagos. Who wants to start?
All right, so I am someone who has been doing debates for quite a long time since I was little, but then naturally I speak very fast. It might not seem like that right now, yeah, but naturally I speak very fast. So the ability to speak a little bit slower, to pay extra attention to my attention, and to basically be able to communicate perfectly, as communication is not complete unless the receiver understands what I'm trying to pass across. So in the course of this debate, I have been developing the skill of speaking a bit slower and ensuring that I'm communicating properly. Thank you.
Thank you. And your two colleagues, what are they developing the most during this competition?
All right, thank you. I think throughout this debate, I've been able to develop two different skills. First is my research skills on international law have really improved. It has improved massively, and I now have quite a lot of knowledge on international law and state responsibility. Second, I think time management skills as well. Time management skill. My I before I tend to I'm a speaker that tend to like speak over time. But
No, it's all about speaker.
All right. A skill that I've developed or activated, according to Mr. Larange, is my ability to weave in a lot of points within a short period of time. Because most times I've been accused of having a lot of things to say. A key skill of that I've activated.
So who wants to start?
So I really enjoyed the process of learning debate because I come from a very different background, and both of my colleagues will talk about this in a second. But I come from a public speaking background where I do competitive speech. So learning to debate and everything, being able to engage with the other side's arguments is something that's completely new to me. So I've really enjoyed the opportunity to learn how cool of a format debate is overall. So that was a really fun experience for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, a lot of what I've enjoyed bettering my skill set with is thinking quickly. It's very easy to spend hours or however long researching a topic and kind of building your understanding of something over a long period of time, but it is far more difficult to think about how something relates to another thing, especially with complex legal doctrines, in 2 minutes. It makes it far more difficult, and it makes you really have to think and use what you know in a very strategic way, which I think is valuable.
Yep.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Yes, I would have to agree. I come from a competitive debate background, so I really resonate with what my colleague said about learning to kind of slow down, speak with a little bit more emphasis rather than just trying to squeeze in as many arguments into the possible time. But I also really have just enjoyed learning about different international legal frameworks. I feel like in my current studies, I'm a business student right now, so I don't necessarily get to tackle these questions every day in the classroom. So I feel like I'm learning a lot of things that are really enhancing my experience as a student. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. So, as we say after every match, please see if you want to keep contact. This is an opportunity for networking, this competition. You have already met students from Nepal, but as well from Czech Republic. So it is in this group a possibility for you to indeed see in the future, if you want to keep contact, and you never know in your career if you will need to speak to those, I would say, persons you have debated this year, for helping on some cases or some situations. So yes, so we are very happy to see indeed already the progress, and in 2 weeks will be the third match. So in the meanwhile, we'll send you, of course, the score sheets. But yes, so looking forward to see, of course, as well the third match for each of you. So many thanks again, and we keep in touch. Have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Well done, everyone. Goodbye.